The thing is, I did not think of it as cruelty at first. I thought of it as timing, image, and a joke that landed harder because Marcus always made silence look so easy. Of course, people now say I plan to humiliate him, but people love clean stories after the damage is done. That night was his birthday, and I wanted everyone in the restaurant to see what I had been living with. By dessert, the whole room knew exactly who I was. My name is Sloane Whitaker. I am 34, and I work as a senior brand strategist for a small hospitality agency. The thing is, I have always understood rooms better than people, which sounds cold until you remember that rooms decide who matters before anyone says a word. I built restaurant openings, launch nights, private dinners, and pretty public stories, so of course I thought I knew the difference between a bad joke and bad timing. Marcus never cared about that. He cared about clean socks, early mornings, and whether the coffee place near our apartment still had the cinnamon sleeves I liked. Every Sunday, he brought me coffee and left the receipt tucked inside the sleeve because once, years earlier, I said handwritten notes made me embarrassed. That was Marcus. He remembered small things and avoided large ones. 2 weeks before his birthday, we were in our living room. The lamp beside the couch made everything look soft, even his old college sweatshirt. I hated that sweatshirt that night. It made him look like a man who still thought love was enough without presentation. I had my laptop open with 3 restaurant tabs. One place had a private booth, a dessert station, and the kind of lighting that made people post photos without being asked. I told Marcus that it would be perfect for his birthday. He asked why his birthday had to look like a campaign. He asked what changed between us because we used to split cheap tiramisu and pretend the chef had flown in from Rome. I heard something else. I heard him asking me to be smaller. So I said the thing is, growing up did not mean hiding in corner booths forever. I told him that people liked celebrating people who acted worth celebrating. He folded one of his shirts and said he did not want to be made into a performance. Of course, he said it softly. Marcus made even rejections sound polite. My phone buzzed beside me. Elise had sent a message from work saying that a man who hid from attention should not marry a woman like me. I smiled before I could stop myself. Marcus saw the smile, but he did not ask. That was his flaw, though I did not call it that then. He noticed everything, swallowed most of it, and called that peace. He went back to folding laundry. I went back to choosing the restaurant. By the time I confirmed the reservation, there were only 3 people in the room. Me, my husband, and the version of him I had already started selling to myself. The rooftop brunch was not supposed to matter. It was one of those clean, bright places with glass railings, small plates, and waiters who spoke like they were part of the design. From a branding point of view, the room worked. Sunlight, white umbrellas, couples pretending not to compare each other. If I had been writing copy for it, I would have called it effortless. The thing is, nothing about that morning felt effortless to me. Marcus sat beside Theo, his college friend, talking about a bridge repair project, in a voice so steady it almost disappeared under the music. Theo listened because Theo had known him before I did. Lena, Theo's wife, smiled in the careful way people smile when they are trying to follow a subject they do not care about. Nora sat beside me, stirring her iced coffee. Elise was across the table, sunglasses on, amused before anyone had earned it. I remember looking at Marcus's hands. Clean nails, no watch, wedding ring scratched from work. He looked decent. He looked kind. He also looked to me like a man who did not understand the room he was in. Of course, that bothered me more than I admitted. Earlier that week, I had met Julian Ferraro at a restaurant preview for work. He was an investor, not the loud kind, the kind who stood near the bar and made people come to him. He had watched me redirect a tense conversation between a chef and a photographer, then told me I controlled a room like I owned the lease. I laughed, but I kept that sentence. Marcus did not say things like that. Marcus showed love by replacing my windshield wipers, checking tire pressure, carrying the heavy grocery bag without making a point of it. Useful things. Quiet things. Things no one clapped for. At brunch, Theo asked where Marcus wanted to go for his birthday. Marcus said he would have been happy with a small dinner at home. I said he meant that because he was hard to market. People laughed. Not loudly. Not cruelly at first. It was the kind of laugh that waits for permission from the prettiest person at the table. Elise gave it permission. She leaned back and said, Marcus did have strong hidden feature energy. Nora laughed too. Theo smiled and then stopped. Lena looked at Marcus, not at me. Marcus gave a small smile because Marcus always gave rooms time to recover. That used to be one of the things I loved about him. By then, I treated it like proof he could not defend himself. I added that quiet men should come with instruction manuals because adult social situations overwhelmed them. There it was. A better line. Sharper. The table laughed again, but this time the sound was thinner. Marcus looked down at his plate. He moved a piece of toast with his fork and did not eat it. From a public image angle, the table had split. Elise was still with me. Nora was uncertain. Theo had moved closer to Marcus without moving his chair. Lena was watching like she had started taking notes inside her head. After brunch, Marcus and I walked to the parking garage. The air smelled like hot pavement and the oil from the restaurant vents below. He carried my tote because I had worn heels that scraped my ankle. He asked why I needed to use him as material. Specific. Factual. Not dramatic. He said that at brunch I called him hard to market, and then I said adult social situations overwhelmed him. He asked what had happened between the coffee sundaes and that table. The thing is, when Marcus asked real questions, I heard accusation even when his voice stayed calm. I heard him saying I was too much. I heard him asking me to become the kind of wife who stroked his ego in public and carried her anger home like leftovers. So I told him he only called it cruel because he hated being challenged. I said I was trying to help him. I said people already saw his quietness, and I was only naming what everyone noticed. He stopped near the car. He asked if I believed that. I told him of course I believed it. What else was I supposed to say? That Julian had made me feel seen for doing the thing Marcus always acted like I should soften? That a man outside my marriage had noticed my power, and now my husband's softness looked worse beside it? Marcus asked who Julian was because the name had lit up on my phone during brunch. I said he was a work contact. That was not a lie. It was just not the whole shape of the truth. Marcus waited, and that was worse than pressing me. His silence gave me space to add more, and I hated him for making me choose. I said Julian was connected to a restaurant account and that I needed to keep him warm professionally. I used work language because work language made everything clean. Leads, contacts, accounts, positioning. Not attention. Not wanting. Not the way I checked my phone when Marcus went to shower. That night, Julian sent another message. He said my husband seemed like a man who did not know what he had. I read it at the bathroom sink while Marcus brushed his teeth beside me. The mirror showed both of us. Him in an old shirt. Me with my phone angled away. He asked if work was still busy. I told him yes, and then I locked the screen. The next day, Priya, Marcus's sister, sent me a message asking whether we were still doing his birthday dinner at the Italian place. She said Marcus had sounded unsure. Priya always made concerns sound like logistics. That was her way. She did not attack. She asked where, when, and whether she should bring anything. I told her everything was fine and that Marcus was just nervous about attention. She replied that he was not nervous about attention with people he trusted. Of course, that annoyed me. Priya had known him longer, and she used that history like a quiet weapon. I sent back a smiling emoji and said the birthday boy would survive one nice dinner. Elise loved the restaurant choice. At work, she stood over my desk while I checked the reservation. The agency office smelled like toner, burnt coffee, and someone's expensive citrus perfume. She said Marcus needed to be pulled into my world once in a while. She said men like him got comfortable being adored for doing the bare minimum. I said Marcus did more than the bare minimum. Elise shrugged and said maybe, but not in a way anyone could see. That sentence stayed with me too. By Friday, Theo had stopped replying in the group thread unless Marcus wrote first. Nora sent a dress code question, then did not respond to my joke about Marcus needing a social handler. Priya said she could not make the dinner because of an early work shift, but she hoped Marcus enjoyed himself. That was how the circle started shrinking, not with a fight, but with slower replies and smaller words. Marcus noticed. He asked at dinner why people were being strange in the thread. I told him the thing is, not every silence was about him. He said maybe not, but mine had been. That landed too close, so I changed the subject to the birthday cake. From a branding point of view, the dinner still had strong ingredients. A good table, a polished room, a guest list that could still be corrected. A husband who only needed to stop making discomfort his personality. That was how I framed it. That was how I kept moving. When Julian messaged that he might stop by the restaurant bar that Saturday because he knew the owner, I did not tell Marcus. I told myself there was nothing to tell. Then I saved the reservation confirmation and sent Elise a screenshot. She replied that if Marcus survived that room, maybe there was hope for him yet. I laughed at my desk. Across from me, one of the junior designers looked up, then looked back down. The restaurant was perfect in the way expensive places are perfect when they want people to feel chosen. Low gold lights, white plates, dark wood. A dessert station near the back with tiny cakes under glass and candles waiting in a silver tray. The air smelled like garlic butter, warm bread, and melted sugar. From a brand angle, the room said adult, desirable, controlled. That was what I wanted Marcus to step into. He wore the navy jacket I had bought him the year before because I said it made him look more decisive. He did not love that jacket, but he wore it for me. That should have softened me. Of course, I treated it as proof that he could follow direction when the direction was clear enough. At first, the dinner almost worked. Theo and Lena arrived with a small wrapped gift. Nora came in a green dress and hugged Marcus longer than usual. Elise showed up late, kissed the air beside my cheek, and told me the room was good. Marcus smiled when everyone sat. He thanked them for coming. His voice was quiet, but not weak. He looked happy in a simple, unguarded way. For a few minutes I saw the man from the coffee sundaes. The one who could make cheap tiramisu feel like a private country. The one who had once driven 40 minutes back to a diner because I left my scarf there and said scarves were cheaper than listening to me mourn a scarf for 3 days. Then my phone lit up under the edge of my napkin. Julian. He sent that the bar was crowded and that our table looked lively from where he was standing. I glanced across the room. He was near the bar, one hand around a glass, not coming over, just watching. Self-protective, as always, but available enough to make me feel seen. Marcus followed my eyes. He did not say anything. That was the problem. He never said anything in time. He let moments gather weight and then acted surprised when they crushed something. The waiter came then. His name was Matteo. Young, careful smile, black apron, pen ready. He asked if we wanted another round before ordering. The thing is, I did not plan the kids' menu before that second. Not exactly. I had planned to tease Marcus. I had planned to make the room understand what I had been carrying. But the menu idea arrived clean and bright, like a line that fit the campaign. I told Matteo to bring my husband the kids' menu because the birthday boy still needed simple choices. For half a second, everyone laughed. That half second is important. People like to pretend no one laughed. They did. Elise laughed first. Nora followed. Theo made a sound that stopped before it became one. Lena did not laugh. Marcus smiled the way people smile when they are giving you one last chance to pull back. I did not pull back. I added that Matteo should bring crayons too, since adult decisions tended to overwhelm Marcus. Matteo's smile changed. It stayed on his mouth but left his eyes. He looked at Marcus, then at me, as if checking whether this was something couples did in this kind of room. I raised my eyebrows. A small signal. Come on, keep the bit moving. So he went. The silence did not come yet. First came the awkward recovery. Elise picked up her wine. Nora said something about how birthdays made everyone childish. Theo asked Marcus about the bridge project again, too quickly. Lena folded her napkin, unfolded it, and put it back on her lap. Marcus looked at me. He did not glare. He did not plead. He only looked tired in a way that made me want to punish him for making me see it. I heard my mother's voice in my head then, though she was not at the table. Diane had always said that if you let people pity your man, they would pity you next. She had learned that after my father left, for someone younger, someone softer, someone who did not sharpen herself before dinner. My mother had survived by laughing first. She taught me that the person who made the joke held the knife by the handle. Matteo returned with the kids' menu. It was folded, glossy, bright. A cartoon chef on the front. Little boxes for pasta, chicken fingers, mini pizza. A tiny pack of crayons sat on top. The room tightened. Nearby, a woman at another table glanced over. The couple behind Theo went quiet. Sound did not vanish all at once. It thinned. Forks slowed. A glass touched a table too hard and then nothing covered it. Matteo placed the kids' menu beside Marcus's plate. He said something about bringing the regular menu too if needed. His voice was low, not playful anymore. Marcus touched the edge of the kids' menu with 2 fingers. He did not open it. He folded it once, carefully, even though it was already folded. Then he placed it beside his water glass, lined up with the knife. That action bothered me more than anger would have. Anger would have made me right. Anger would have let me say he was dramatic, insecure, unable to take a joke. But this careful folding made the whole table look at the object instead of the line. It made the menu not funny. It made it evidence, though I did not use that word yet. Of course, I kept smiling. From a room control point of view, stopping was impossible. If I stopped, the joke became cruelty. If I continued, maybe it stayed a joke. So I told Marcus that he should order the mini pizza because it matched his conflict style. Elise looked down. Nora's smile disappeared. Theo said my name once, not loud, just enough to warn me that the room had moved without me. Marcus thanked Matteo and asked for the check before dessert. That was when the restaurant went silent enough for me to hear the candle tray being moved near the dessert station. I said the thing is, he was ruining his own birthday by being sensitive. Marcus did not answer. He took his wallet out, though we usually use the joint card for dinners. His hands were steady. That steadiness made me want to push harder because somewhere under my ribs I knew I had lost the room. Lena leaned toward him and said something quiet. I did not hear all of it, only the shape of care. Marcus nodded once. Elise reached for her phone, then put it face down. That was the first time all night she looked less thrilled by me. Matteo came back with the check. He did not look at me when he placed it down. He looked at Marcus and said something simple about the dessert being removed from the bill. A service professional choosing dignity over performance. That was bad for the room. Bad for my version. Bad for the campaign. Marcus signed the receipt. He did not ask if I was ready to leave. Outside, the night air smelled like rain and kitchen exhaust. Our group stood near the entrance in a shape that no longer had me at the center. Theo stayed close to Marcus. Nora hugged herself. Elise lit a cigarette even though she told people she only smoked under stress. Marcus asked me quietly whether I understood what had happened in there. This was his S3 voice, the quiet debrief. No raised tone, no public fight. He said the waiter had looked ashamed for me. He said the table had gone silent because people knew I meant it. I heard him calling me cruel. I heard him taking the room from me after I had done all the work to build it. So I said people went silent because he made them uncomfortable. I said he punished everyone by refusing to laugh. I said of course I had meant it as a joke, and he was choosing to make it ugly. He looked at me for a long time. Then he held up the folded kids' menu. I had not seen him take it. He put it inside his jacket pocket like a receipt. That small action should have scared me. Instead, I told myself he was being theatrical. When we got into the car, he started the engine and drove home without turning on the radio. The silence was not empty. It had edges. It sat between us like another passenger with its hands folded. I checked my phone. Julian had sent one message. He said that was intense and then nothing else. I waited for him to add that I had been funny, brave, right. The typing dots never came. The next morning, the apartment did not look broken. That annoyed me. Broken things should show themselves. Plates on the floor, doors slammed, clothes gone from drawers. Instead, sunlight came through the blinds in clean lines, and Marcus's shoes were lined up by the door like always. The thing is, order can be more insulting than chaos. Marcus had half-packed an overnight bag and left it open on the bench at the foot of the bed. 3 shirts, charger, toothbrush case. The navy jacket from the dinner hung over the chair. His wedding ring was still on his hand, but he kept turning it with his thumb. I stood in the doorway and treated the room like a damaged brand. What needed repositioning? What needed repair? Which audience still mattered? Of course, I started with tone. I told him the dinner had become strange because he made it strange. I said everyone understood it was humour until he acted wounded. He did not answer right away. He zipped the side pocket of the bag, then unzipped it again, as if the sound gave him time. He said it was not one menu. It was not one dinner. It was not one joke. He said it had been months of making him smaller whenever people were watching. There was the pattern, named without drama. I told him patterns were what people invented when they wanted to win arguments. He asked if I remembered brunch, the group chat, the instruction manual joke, the way I checked my phone when Julian messaged. He did not say Julian like a jealous man. He said it like a fact, on a form. That made it harder to dismiss. So I dismissed it anyway. I said he was collecting small things because he did not want to face the big one, which was that his silence had made me lonely in public. That was close to true, and closeness made it useful. He went into the bathroom and closed the door. A few seconds later, I heard him breathing, not crying loudly, not performing, just breathing in and out like he had to count each one. That should have opened something in me. It opened a crack, maybe, but not enough. I told myself he wanted me to hear it. I told myself he knew sadness was his strongest weapon because anger did not fit him. My phone buzzed. Nora had sent a message saying she hoped Marcus was okay and that last night had gotten uncomfortable. Not that my joke had been funny. Not that Marcus had overreacted. Uncomfortable. A neutral word with a guilty spine. I wrote back that of course he was okay and that everyone was turning a birthday joke into a public trial. She did not answer. Priya left the group chat 10 minutes later. No speech, no accusation. Just the little notification that she had left. I stared at it and then tossed the phone onto the bed. Diane called before lunch. My mother always called when she sensed blood, even through walls and phones. She asked whether Marcus had embarrassed me in front of people. I said he had made everyone feel sorry for him. She said men became dramatic when they lost control. That comforted me because it sounded like family history. My father had not left because my mother was hard. He had left because he wanted easy admiration. That was the version we kept polished. I had repeated it so often that it felt like a family heirloom. When Marcus came out of the bathroom, his face was washed, his hair damp at the edges. He looked calmer, which I hated more than if he had looked destroyed. He moved to his side of the dresser. That was when I saw it. The folded kids' menu lay there, neat and bright against the dark wood. Not torn, not thrown away, not hidden. Just placed beside his watch and a plain white envelope. The room narrowed to that object. For a slow few seconds, my mind stopped building arguments. The cartoon chef smiled up from the glossy cover. The little crayon pack was gone, but the crease Marcus had made was sharp. He had carried it home. He had slept with it in the apartment. He had placed it where he would see it while getting dressed. A strange thought came close. Maybe he had not kept it to punish me. Maybe he had kept it because the menu marked the exact shape of what I had done. Not a joke. Not a room that went wrong. A thing small enough to fit in his pocket and large enough to make him leave. For one breath, I saw the dinner from behind Matteo's eyes. A woman asking for a child's menu for her husband. A table laughing because the wife had told them to. A man folding humiliation into a square because there was no clean place to put it. Then I closed the door. I told myself Marcus was collecting props. I told myself he had learned the power of looking wounded. I picked up my phone and took a picture of the menu. I sent it to Elise with a message about evidence from the children's table. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Elise did not laugh. Later, she reacted with a small symbol and nothing else. That bothered me, so I changed tactics. I made tea for Marcus. I put the mug on the dresser near the envelope and told him we both got carried away. Controlled partial truth. A soft version of myself. A woman who could admit to a bad tone without admitting to a bad heart. He looked at the mug and asked whether I was sorry I had done it, or sorry people had seen it. I said the thing is, those were not different questions. He said, they were the only questions. The tea sat there until it cooled. That evening, I posted nothing. For me, that counted as restraint. But I did send Diane a long message about how Marcus had been withdrawing for months and how I was tired of being the only visible person in the marriage. She wrote back that I should not let him turn weakness into leverage. Marcus slept in the guest room. Before he went, he took the folded kids' menu from the dresser, slid it into the plain envelope, and placed the envelope in his work bag. I told myself he was being dramatic again. From a branding point of view, a prop only worked if the audience agreed with it. What I did not understand was that he had stopped performing for my audience. He had started preparing for a room where my smile would not matter. 4 days after the birthday dinner, the apartment smelled like lemon cleaner because I had scrubbed the kitchen counters twice. Cleaning gave me a reason to move. Movement looked like control. From a brand angle, the home needed to say stable, wronged, reasonable wife dealing with an overreaction. The thing is, I invited Diane over before telling Marcus. That was the line I crossed on purpose. It was not impulse. I knew exactly what I was doing. A private conversation with Marcus had become dangerous because he no longer softened when I pushed. With my mother there, I thought the room would remember its natural order. Diane would understand me. Marcus would become polite. I would stop being cornered by his silence. Diane arrived with a beige coat, a hard mouth, and a bag of pastries no one ate. She kissed my cheek and looked around the apartment like she was checking for damage she could use. Marcus came out of the guest room and saw her at the dining table. He did not look surprised. That was the worst part. He looked like a man arriving at a meeting he had expected. He sat down across from me. Diane sat beside me. 2 against 1. That was how I wanted it, though I would have called it support. Marcus asked if this was a conversation or a presentation. Calm, specific, a real question. I said the thing is, I needed someone present because he had been twisting everything I said. He nodded once as if I had confirmed something for him. Diane told him that marriages required thicker skin. She said Sloane had always been expressive, and that he had known that when he married me. Marcus said he had not married an audience. That sentence irritated me because it was good, simple, hard to reframe. I hated when Marcus became clear after months of being fog. So I used the thing I had that was true. I told him his silence had taught people they could disrespect both of us. The table went still. I said that when my mother called him a quiet chair 8 months earlier, he had laughed instead of defending himself or me. I said that when people talked over him, he let them. I said that when I needed him to stand up beside me, he retreated into being decent and called it peace. I said I had spent years trying to make us look strong because he refused to look strong with me. He did not deny it. No defense, no correction, no wounded speech. He simply sat with it. That made me angrier than if he had fought. I needed him to reject the accusation so I could keep the whole thing simple. Instead, he accepted the true part and left the rest in my hands. He said he had failed by avoiding conflict. He said he had allowed people, including my mother, to speak in ways he should have stopped. He said he understood why that made me feel alone. Diane shifted beside me. For 1 second, The room became dangerous for me. Then Marcus continued. He said his failure did not explain why I needed witnesses before I felt powerful. He said he could live with being married to someone angry, but not with someone who made cruelty public and then called the audience proof. Final and clean. Not repeated. I heard an insult anyway. I told him if he had acted like a real husband, I would not have had to embarrass him into becoming one. Diane looked at me then, not with shock. My mother did not shock easily, more like calculation. Even she knew the sentence had gone too far to be useful. Marcus removed his hand from the table. Small movement, quiet decision marker. His hand had been near mine, not touching, but close enough that the old version of us would have known what to do with the space. He pulled it back and rested both hands on his knees. Then he said he would handle things properly. Properly. Not loudly. Not cruelly. No named document. No threat. No performance. The tone did what shouting could not. It made Diane sit straighter. It made me reach for my water glass and keep filling it from the pitcher, though I had not taken a drink. I said of course he would make himself the victim. I said he loved being the quiet man everyone protected. I said maybe he had been waiting for a reason to punish me. He did not answer. Diane told him he should not make permanent choices because of one dinner. He said again that it was not one dinner. The repetition should have sounded weak. It did not. It sounded organized. After he left the dining table, I grabbed my phone and sent Elise 3 voice messages from the bathroom. I told her Marcus was playing victim with paperwork energy. I told her Diane had seen it too. I asked what to do when a man turned one joke into a personality. Elise gave only a thumbs-up reaction at 1:14 a.m. That was all. No joke. No voice note. No plan. Absence where applause used to be. I tried Julian next, not because he could help, but because he had once made me feel like the version of myself I preferred. His replies had been shorter since the restaurant. Careful. Sanded down. He said Marcus seemed upset and that I should keep his name out of anything domestic. He used the word domestic like my marriage was a stain on his shirt. I told him there was nothing domestic about being humiliated by your own husband's silence. He did not answer for 3 hours. Meanwhile, the apartment became logistical. Marcus packed a small bag for work trips that were not work trips. He labelled boxes in the hall with a black marker. He changed the grocery delivery to every other week. He stopped asking what I wanted for dinner and started writing his own list. I became louder. At work, I told Nora by message that Marcus had turned cold and that people had made too much of the birthday dinner. Nora replied a day later saying she should not have laughed. Not that I was right. Not that Marcus was unfair. She made herself part of the wrong and then stepped away from me. Theo did not reply at all. Priya had already left the group chat. I checked twice as if the notification might reverse itself. Diane stayed reachable, but even her advice became practical. She asked whether the apartment was in both our names. She asked whether Marcus had moved money. She asked whether he had said anything specific. My mother's comfort had always been sharp, but now it had edges that faced me too. The next evening, Marcus came into the kitchen while I was wiping an already clean counter. He said he wanted all communication about shared expenses in writing for a while. I laughed because the alternative was to be afraid. I told him the thing is, written communication was for co-workers and divorced people. He rinsed a glass, placed it in the dishwasher, and said nothing. That silence was not like the old silence. The old silence waited for me. This one moved without me. I followed him to the hallway and said he was proving my point. I said he would rather organize pain than speak like a husband. I said no one respected a man who needed envelopes and lists to have a spine. He picked up his work bag. For a second, I thought he might finally raise his voice. I wanted it. I wanted a messy Marcus, an angry Marcus, someone I could point to and say, "There, see, this was always underneath." He only said he was done trying to be understood by someone who needed him humiliated first. Then he went into the guest room and closed the door. That night, His phone lay face down on the bedside table when I passed the open door. He was awake. I could see the light from the lamp under the frame. But the room was quiet in a way that felt scheduled, like the silence had an appointment I had not been invited to attend. The mediation office smelled like paper, carpet cleaner, and coffee that had been sitting too long. I arrived with Diane because I still believed rooms worked better when I brought the right witness. From a branding point of view, I looked composed. Cream blouse, low bun, wedding ring on, folder in hand. Marcus arrived alone in the navy jacket I had bought him. Before Karen Holt, the mediator, entered, he removed his wedding ring and placed it on the table beside a plain envelope. The thing is, I thought mediation meant discussion. Karen placed a packet in front of me and explained that it was a formal petition for dissolution of marriage with temporary financial and property orders. The first temporary orders hearing was scheduled for the following month at the County Family Court Intake Office. I signed the acknowledgement with a pen that skipped on the second letter of my last name. Then I put both hands under the table because my fingers kept rubbing the place where my own ring sat. Diane looked at the packet, then at Marcus, then down at her purse. The proof was not dramatic. That made it worse. Lena's written account, Matteo's statement, the reservation notes, the receipt, the folded kids menu inside the envelope. No secret trick. Just people who had watched enough and stopped helping me call it humour. I said it had been a joke. Karen asked whether I disputed asking the waiter to bring my husband a kids menu in front of his birthday party. I started explaining context, group humour, and Marcus's passivity. Karen wrote something down without changing her face. That neutral silence was the first audience I could not win. Before the meeting ended, Julian sent one message saying he could not be involved in a domestic situation, then blocked my number before I could answer. Marcus stayed in the apartment under the temporary property arrangement, and I moved into Diane's guest room with 2 suitcases and my agency laptop. Our joint account became restricted for household expenses until the hearing, so even groceries started to feel like supervised decisions. Priya blocked me. Theo stopped inviting me anywhere, and Nora sent one message saying she should not have laughed. Julian removed me from the restaurant campaign thread before the agency director could ask me to step back. At work, I was moved off hospitality accounts after the restaurant owner heard why Matteo had given a statement. The thing is, I thought public control would protect me from looking foolish. Of course, I told myself Marcus had made me do it by being quiet, by being soft, by letting rooms decide what he was worth. But when the room finally went silent, it was not because he looked small. It was because everyone had seen how hard I worked to make him that way. The folded kids menu stayed on the mediation table after Marcus left. I made him look like a child, and he left me sitting there like one.